interested everything related to that what we do as humans. We are forecasters, you could say. My name is Ben van Berkel, I'm an architect. I am the founder of Young Studio. I live in Amsterdam, but I've not only an office in Amsterdam, but also in Shanghai and Hong Kong, and also in Frankfurt. I'm born in Utrecht, a city I still love.
We lived in an area where a lot of building activities were going on, and I loved the smell of building. My earlier architectural objects were made out of fascia technique. That was very popular in the 70s and the 80s.
I had this dream to become an architect. And I thought I could do it through the practice to become an architect. During the day I had the best experience ever. I worked for a Japanese designer who promoted me to go to Japan when I was 19. He learned me everything about Japanese architecture and then many others where I worked for during the years that I was at this Rietveld Art College.
You can imagine if you work during the day and then do a study in the night, you had not so much time to sleep because in the evenings I did all my homework. But because of that intense period of working and then studying and doing my own work, I got so much information in the 4 years that I was here in Amsterdam, that from art to design, graphic design, colors and proportions and printing techniques and later on about how furniture were made, etc. So that was a very important phase before I studied in the end architecture at the Architectural Association
in London.
I've been taught by Zaha Hadid, that was my teacher. I've always liked that she was quite bold in her approach towards architecture. She was not afraid, when I was a student also, to make drawings bigger than any drawing I ever made in my life. So there were sometimes 3 by 2 meters. And then another stage was, of course, the period when I set up my own office, because that was a very difficult learning stage of how to run a company. And that took me a long time, maybe at least 10 years to make it as smooth as possible, to run a very clean, clear, well-organized company.
We started in the end of the 80s with Van Berkel in Bos, and then in the end of the 90s we turned it into Young Studio.
Young Studio stands for being a united network.
Because we believed in a much more network-based organization, and then over the years we turned into a quite international company with practices in Shanghai and Hong Kong.
We have quite an experimental way of working, and that is maybe my secret, that I don't use only the computer. We make models, we make sketches, we make collages. Everything is teamwork here.
It's quite shocking how many projects we did over the last years. Möbius House, the Arnhem train station, a mixed-use project in Hangzhou, a residential project in London, museums. We have fascinations to work for clients who ask us to design furniture for the buildings. The work is extremely diverse, and that's what we like. We have a style somewhere, but it is something you always have to discover. Sometimes it was more colorful, then it was more articulated, then it became a bit more sober, then it was more... I had even a blue period,
I don't have a particular favorite project. I always say that my favorite project is the next project where I'm working on.
The project in Dubai, the Wassel Tower, is a project of 300 meters high. It's highly sustainable with a facade what is a ceramic facade. I think it's the first ceramic tower with this height with ceramic tiles on it. It's a mixed-use project, so hotels, offices and some residential functions to be connected towards the hotel. The latest project in London is the Canaletto Tower. It is a project of residential spaces in there with amenities connected towards the tower. The idea there was to think about the way how people who live there would meet each other quite regularly, so that they could create a set of communities in the sky, and that really worked very well. The first project I did in Germany was a very small project. I renovated the Aedes gallery from Christine Feilreis in Berlin, but it was a very small project. And then of course the major project after that was the Mercedes-Benz Museum. In the client's eye in the beginning there was this idea that it needed to be a showroom. So a fantastic showroom where people could learn more about Mercedes. But then working with the exhibition designer also, we designed a museum. Maybe the beauty of the project was that we never expected that it would become so successful. We did a project in Hangzhou, the Raffles City project. This 220,000 square meters of highly mixed programs. It's connected to 2 metro stations, and is a project what is really dealing with the diversity of the city, like we have in the FOUR project in Frankfurt. In Frankfurt I was a professor for almost 15 years at the Städelschule. I have family here in Frankfurt. I always wanted to do a project here. And particularly with the FOUR project, what is so exciting is that it is on a location people could use it again.
This part of the city center where the Deutsche Bank used to be, that was an area where for almost 40 years not people could come to. There were a lot of people who never knew that part of the city even, because you could not enter it. And we'll make that area also much more lively, so that you would have cafes, restaurants, you have 2 hotels.
We have then a roof garden open to the public, and then you have the 4 towers with different programs in there, like housing. It's going to be a project what is going to be so exciting and new in the city center that it's going to be not only interesting to experience, but particularly you're going to love to come back to, because it's going to be a new extension of the city center. How you flower out, in a way, almost a project, when you are in the 4 neighborhoods connected towards the 4 towers, because that was the idea, that the 4 towers also really identify a clear connection towards the 4 neighborhoods in the area. The first idea was to work with that idea of the windmill concept, that you have 4 areas and that you think about the 4 areas not as fixed elements, but that they circulate and that they activate themselves by the way how people are going to use them. And then of course we introduced the towers on top of the windmill concept, and that made it more dynamic in the way how we approach the site. That sometimes that the 4 towers would melt into each other, that they would separate from each other, that you would suddenly see only 1 tower or 2 towers, and that was the principle in the way how you would experience it from a larger distance when the windmill would activate itself. At the project 4 we used the kink as a cut in the facade. The reason why we do that is in order to give it a bit more difference in the scale of the project, because the tower might be looking quite high and quite mono-functional and quite harsh. But with the kink you can soften the geometry and the sculptural quality of the tower. So it's giving it more richness in the way how you experience it from different angles. The reason we wanted to make these lively facades was to make sure that also each facade on each tower would have a different expression. But they were also designed from not only from the outside in, but particularly from the inside out.
Well, the most important challenge was to make sure that everything would work in such a complex project. that you would make the project so that if you would have 4 towers with different programs in there, that you would have for each apartment of each office space a view towards the panorama of Frankfurt, for instance. That was very important. So we shifted and twisted the buildings in so many directions endlessly, like sculptures, that they would never face each other. If it comes up to me, then even a little design of a balustrade on a balcony, these details for me are as important as if we have a green roof or not. The challenge was also to bring all the parties together, that everyone believed in it. That was for me the most important, that not only the client, of course, because it's a very public project, you could say. Everyone's going to look at this. It's a very political project in a way, because it needed to house also subsidized housing. It needed to have topics of sustainability in there, that it would be attractive for anyone who would come to this part of the city. So you can work there, you can live there, you can go to the restaurants and the wellness of the hotel. You have commercial functions, restaurants. So it's almost like a little city in itself. And I think that's also the future of city planning, that buildings have a little bit more mixed, lively uses in one project, because that means that you can stay longer on the site. You don't have to use constantly the mobility of the city alone. I'm still so fascinated in the profession that I still read everything about the profession, and I want to be updated of what all my colleagues are doing, and I think it's also just hard work, and stay alert. That's maybe my secret, to stay alert. When you are the age where I am, you can say that you maybe are quite far in your profession, because I have already for 30 years this office. But strange enough, I have the opposite feeling. I have the feeling that I just started, and that my real time is still to come.